All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education Finance Transportation Committee meeting for Tuesday, May 26, 2026. Second item is public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes. We have minutes from April 27th, 2026. Bonnie, did you receive any corrections? Any of us have any? Yeah.
Nope.
No, at this time. I will make the motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, our minutes pass. Moving on to item number 4, discussion and consideration. We have the 2026-2027 preliminary education fund budget. Mr. Latham.
Hi, good evening. Just wanted to give before the Finance Committee tonight to talk a little bit about the preliminary education budget. It's in the most basic form. All the preliminary budgets start off that way. As we get a little better and have a better understanding of what the fiscal year will end like as we move into the new fiscal year. So this starts July 1st of 2026 and goes through June 20th of 2027. That is our fiscal year that we're reviewing. Here's a little bit about the assumptions that we have. So our local equal assessed valuation, our local taxes, we did see an increase in those. It was not as high as what we thought they would be. Some of that has to do with some of the board of review appeals that took place. We're more in line to see a higher number, and it came a little lower this year, which does affect the dollars that we received. Nonetheless, $73,731,373 is what we expect out of taxation. The next area is our local funds that we have. Those are typically things like our interest, our personal property replacement tax, which is a tax on businesses, our registration fee, other fees such as athletic registration fees, other fees that we would collect, and our food service income, $6,009,854. Our middle category there is our state revenue. That is just our typical grants and categoricals that we would have. That is $1,074,220. Our evidence-based funding, we've used the maintain number. We'll usually find out lower if there's an increase. For the past couple of years, that has been $5,000 or less. So we're going to keep it at $2,144,000. And lastly, for revenue is our federal revenue. Those are our grants, our Title II, III, IV that we have, and our Medicaid. Probably the biggest contributors to our federal revenue at $1,874,000. So in total, it's estimated that we'll have $833,447 of revenue. On the expenditure side for the education fund, when we're looking at our salaries, those are based upon our collective bargaining agreements, our working agreements, and the estimation that we'll be at full staffing. That cost for salaries is $61,459,285. When we look at benefits, we did see an increase this year. On average, about 7.98% in our health costs. And so that was a large driving factor. That's going to come in at $10,904,634. Looking at some of our purchase services, those are things that we have that provide those professional services that we would need, those that we go outside of the district, $7,303,390. Our supplies and materials, those are proposed at current CPI at $1,105,380. Our capital projects, those are just kind of the normal things that we do in a typical year to maintain our facilities. Those aren't our Fund 60 capital projects. Those are just smaller projects that we would have. So in the education fund, you would probably see some things such as textbooks might be a good example of a larger purchase or something that we'd have to provide in regards to equipment that we'd have. That is going to come in at $1,205,183. And then our other expenses are things like dues and fees and contingencies, $4,760,001. Non-capital equipment, those are replacement equipment items that we have. Those are typically smaller items that don't meet the capital threshold, $153,802. So overall, the expenses are estimated at $86,891,675 or a deficit.
Yeah, so question.
Yes.
Nobody likes to see your expenditures exceeding your revenues.
I don't.
What's that?
I don't.
Not great. But I guess my question is, we're early in the process. Is it unusual at this stage to see your revenues that much lower, $2 million lower? I noticed when I went back and looked at your history, your final numbers, a couple years, we did end up with a negative in our education fund. But I know this is really early and you probably have new numbers coming all the time, but when you see this, does it bother you, or is this kind of like the natural stage you're in at this point in time?
This large difference does bother me.
Okay, thank you.
Tells me that there's something trending in the wrong direction. Can some of this be corrected? Sometimes yes. Probably not much on salaries, other than the fact that maybe we don't hire everybody, we don't fill all the positions, we have some cost savings and through retirement. We might be able to get by with some other areas that, sometimes we don't need some of those costs. Some of those could be something simple to someone on a FMLA that we're covering for somebody that almost doubles the cost, and we're still paying them a paid time off benefit. So some of that may get a little better over time. Benefits is a tough one, right? Benefits is really just the cost of our health insurance for the most part. And in this particular case, it also includes in the ed fund our TRS contributions. So anytime you increase salary, you increase the pension benefit. I don't know that that'll change a whole lot. Some of that may vary, usually in the election time frame for benefits, where someone might go either a cheaper plan, or they might go from single to family. We'll see those increases. I actually do the benefits based off of what they currently have for their benefits, and if they change, that could go either direction.
Right.
Where maybe an employee leaves and a cheaper employee comes in, or vice versa. Purchase services, those are all the things that we would typically pay for in a given year that we need that external advice. That's pretty consistent with what our budgets have been requested by our departments and by our principals and by our administration. Maybe we could sharpen the pencil there. Maybe we can go back and see if we need everything that we would need. Maybe the number's just estimated and comes in lower because we don't need a particular service. Supplies and materials are always affected by the inflation. And you'll see in one of the slides I say, well, as long as we don't go in this particular range and beyond it, we're probably okay. Some of the equipment we could assess and say, do we really need these things? Could we put this off to another year? Or is there a cheaper alternative? The contingencies that we have in there, a lot of the dues and fees, keep in mind that those are include external tuition, so that includes our Mid-Valley, our Fox Valley Career Center, some of our outside placement, and those are estimated for the year. May change a little bit as well. And then lastly, our non-capital is just basic equipment. That's not a very large number for some of our replacement of equipment that we have. Still a big difference. And I hope it gets better, but I can't tell you that will be there.
So you're budgeting also on full staffing, and I know I always bring this up, but I mean, do you have a good idea what the historic running rate we have is for staffing?
In the entirety?
Yeah.
So when I do this, I couldn't tell the exact number, but I take all the teachers that we used, for example, in the most recent bargaining. I have all the GSSA union members, the instructional assistants that I have from the last time we have, because that's typically our range. And then I actually go through and take all the other employment categories by currently employed individuals, and that should almost be our full staffing. Because we really are in education, where you see the differences when we come back with like the operations and maintenance, right? We have some custodial issues from time to time. That'll budget for full staffing, but it won't probably be full staff. This is pretty much spot on. I account for everybody that we have in every category, and I put them into the budget at what they make times what we intend to pay them next year.
Yep. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so this is just kind of that running history of the 5-year history. Here's where I'll put my glasses on. So just looking at some of our local taxes starting in 22-23 fiscal year, that 60 million increased to 66 million. We've seen a big jump in EAV that year. And then it kind of slowed down a little bit in 24-25 at 68 million, and then to 71 million and 73. So the good news is that we're still seeing that growth in the economy and the value of homes and the taxation process. We start seeing some variation in some of our local fees, and those are always hard to determine, what those fees will be. So 5.9 million, 5.5, 6.3, 5.8, 6 million. So it's in a range, but from year to year, those aren't reliable is how I would say that, right? Taxes are reliable because you pay your taxes and you get your taxes. So our local sources, 66 million, 72 million, 74 million, 77 million, and then projected for next year 79 million. So we're still on a positive growth for our local sources. Our state, for the most part, sometimes comes and goes. That might be other dollars that are freed up. It might be some carryover dollars that we have. So the state started in 22-23 is 2.9, then 3, 3.3, 3.2. I know that from the most recent conversation that we had today with some of our learning and teaching folks is that we just see those numbers just keep going down, right? Less state dollars, less federal dollars. It just seems to be the trend. Some that might be tied to student enrollment, but some of that is just the fact that we're getting diminishing dollars from those other sources to fund education. And then when we look at our federal revenues of 3.3 million, 2.4, 1.8, 2, and 1.8, there's a good example of some of our sources that are being diminished. Overall, when we look at the totals, starting in that 5-year in 2022 to 23, 72 million, 77, 79, 82, and then ending up at 84, 833, 447. So we still see some positive revenue. So that is the good news in the revenue, is that it's positive growth. It could be the other way around, but fortunately for us, it's not. And that's really based upon a strong local tax base. Questions on the revenue? Now these sometimes I do go back, and I'll give an example where there might be a change, but I highly doubt it. Is the personal property replacement tax. We don't get that final number till August. So that really comes on the final budget. It's had some issues over the year where there was a wrong calculation and we got too much money, then we had to give money back. You know, that is a number that we will brush up on just to see where that number's at the end and with the final budget. Okay, same thing with expenses. Looking at the salaries in 22-23, 51 million, 52, 55, 58, 61. Just that increase of what we pay our employees. Cost of living plus other increases add up to the salaries. When you look at some of the employee benefits, you can see that we're at 9.3 million, then it went to 10.2, 10.3, 10.7, 10.9. It's just the cost of healthcare. And our healthcare continue to have gone up in all the areas. We see it in the PPO, that came in about 6%. The HMO came in just about 10%, and the dental came in about 3%. The life is really no change to life. The life only goes up when your salary goes up because it kind of matches that. So that's dollars compared to everything else. So it really is those two drivers. We know that most of what we have in our budget is salary and benefits. Our purchase services, those grow as well, 5.4, 5.7, 5.4, 6.8, 7.3. Now this is a category that we can go back and take a look at. Why is that increasing? Because clearly you see a trend there that those services cost more. Probably the real answer is they're passing on the same cost to us that cost them, right? Lawyers, engineers, there's no engineers in this thing, but I'm just giving you an example. Those professional services just pass those costs on to us. And the only way we get away from that is to go back out for bid, or we get different services. Materials and supplies, 1.6, 1.5, 1.5, 2, 1.1. And so you can see that you know, those supplies and materials are coming down. Why is that the case? Well, some of that is timing. So if there's a lot of textbooks and software in a given time frame, you might see those materials go up. Kind of had more of a stable inflation. Remember, we were high at the 7s and then 6 and then 2.9, 2.7. So we have seen some of that come down as well. And that's another area that we can go back and take a look at and see, you know, do we need all these supplies that we have, and are there other alternatives? I know when I give a budget out, everybody feels if I don't spend it, I don't get the same amount next year. But it's really based upon needs, right? We look at that same threshold. No one gets plus or minus in some mean way because they did this or that. It's really what the administrators ask for to support and fund themselves. But we always can go back and take a look at that particular area. Our capital outlay is the same way, 1 million, then 931,000, then 1.3, 1.2, 1.2. So that's been very stable for us. It doesn't give a lot of cause for myself. Some of that's timing of what we'd gone through in those early 22, 23, 23, 24 time frames. Other objects, same thing. To me, that's very stable, 5.1, 4.6, 4.8, 4.6, 4.7. Not an area that I probably spent a lot of time looking at. Non-capital equipment, same way, 124,000, 172, 169,000, 155,000, 153. So overall, you know, I think we have identified the places that we need to go take a second look. Sometimes I'll just be honest, right? Maybe it's my error of a transposition. I usually catch those a second time around. Sometimes it's questioning something and going back to whoever requested that and say, is this really what this is costing us, or can we get an update in the cost? Or was that an estimate that now we can get the real number? And so in total, you know, looking at the 22-23 year, 74 million, 75 million, 79 million, 84 million, 86 million. So it just keeps growing. So some of that is going back to take a look at that, you know, to your point, you know, what's that we can take a look at? What's the driver? You know, what can we look at to maybe reduce this? Questions on the expenses? I will tell you it's probably my more difficult budget in the last few years to really put this together. Some years are easier than others. Some years I have more information. Other years I guess better than others. Okay, so let's talk about just some of those assumptions, right? So again, we're providing competitive wages to other competing areas in the public and private sectors. We're offering a benefit that complements what our employees would need. Just like our costs go up, their costs go up. We all understand kind of how that works. We project full staffing, that those meet our needs. Does that change? Sure, enrollment changes, right? We've tracked that all the way through the start of school, and sometimes we make adjustments to that as well. The investments are coming down, the interest income therefore is coming down. We've used those the past couple of years to counter inflation, and again, my CD's at 5, became 4, and I'm lucky if I can get a 3.9 or a 3.95, even if it's 1 to 5 years out. They're just difficult, not the way it was. So I don't see that as a big income generator for us like it used to be. Lastly, we invest in the learning environment. So every year when we look at this, it's what are we investing in and what are we going to get in return? I see those as, you know, what are those learning outcomes? We use those a lot when we talk about grants. What are we investing in and what is the benefit? And then lastly, you know, keep planning for those capital projects. Not all of those are the physical projects like you'd see in Fund 60, but we do have capital needs within the education fund. Okay, questions on those assumptions? Okay, areas of concern, of course, the economy. Can't predict it. You can study it, but you can't predict it. External factors. We know that things that happen around the globe affect us, and sometimes there's things internally that affect us in our process. I become very concerned when that inflation starts going between that 3 and that 3.5%, because even a 0.5% can mean a lot for our cost of supplies and other costs that we would have. Staffing challenges, a new competitor moves into the market, or we're no longer competitive, or there's a change in the economy that moves people to another employment sector, all things we have to consider. Lastly, not lastly, but one of the other factors that is big is legislation, right? We've seen a lot of things that are out there impacting us. We go every year with unfunded mandates, and we have to figure it out. And then we've seen the changes at the state and federal level, whether it's this much new dollars or who gets the new dollars is really the question. We're not always a big recipient of new dollars because, you know, the tier level that we have, we're very self-funding. Grateful that our taxpayers are mindful of that, and that keeps us from having some other challenges as a district. And then lastly, again, if we ever get to the point where we have delayed or reduced categorical payments, so those are things that we wait to come back in, whether they're private placement for a student or they're our Medicaid or Medicaid fee-for-service, all those can have an impact. So sometimes those hit at a certain time of the year, and sometimes they came late and hit another fiscal year. We'll just see how things go. Looking at the current year, it seems like it's trending correctly, right? There might be a few things that might be over, but I think we're probably where we need to be with the 25-26 budget. Any concerns about those factors? Okay. So what are the next steps? Monitor the end of year revenues and expenses as we always do. Where do we end? It also tells us where we begin. Receive earlier and better grant financials, so we constantly work with our grant counterparts in student services or learning and teaching to figure out what we'll have for carryover dollars. Those will increase the revenue if we have those dollars carry over. And they also affect the expenses depending on timing. So we could spend or receive, or we could move it all over and spend or receive in another year. Monitor our health benefits. We constantly look at how to get better with those and how to use the best out of our benefits for what we pay for. The insurance committee a lot of times shares some of the things that we've learned about how to use those benefits. You can actually shop around in some of those to get lower costs. Some of those put money back into the employee's pocket, which helps, as they put their copay out, it comes back in. It could also be some changes in enrollment that we see. We know we have some development coming up, so we're starting to plan for that and understand how that might impact us. We also have the ability to transfer set amounts. This budget does not include probably the $3 to $4 million that may need to be transferred to Fund 60 that matches the Fund $20. That's not even in there. Those will be fund balance, and that will just be how we end the year and what we have available. And then lastly, revenue and sources for changing, and then monitoring that spending. So at some point we typically cut off the spending in the fiscal year to figure out exactly the best we can. We still pay utilities, we still pay private placement for students, but we get a better idea where we're at when we come back to us next time. And it's really quick. It's only, I think, June 15th, so there's not a lot of in time. We'll take May, and then we'll forecast that out and figure out where we think we'll actually end when we come back next time for the draft. Okay, so there's the bad news. Deficit, $2,058,228 at this point. So hopefully we can come back with a better number in our office, and I think that's where we're at. Questions and comments from the committee?
Just kind of echoed what Paul said earlier. That was surprising to see that, but understandable. Is it keeping you up at night, or do you feel like that we will find a way to just kind of reset some of that spending? And
It bothers me.
okay.
I worry about it all the time. It's my job. Just a couple things out there, right? So when we looked at some of the new dollars in the ed fund alone, we're about $1.1 million less than we anticipated. Our new construction came in lower. We thought we would have seen more growth in the Geneva community. Now we know that we may see that growth elsewhere in the future. Our EAV came in at I gotta read all these numbers, $2,119,213,610. The EAV was reduced, and some of those reductions are basically a lot of our tax appeals that we had. We've had more than I've ever had since I've been here. We're talking 20 plus in any given year from big taxpayers. $2,110,033,004. Read that right? So a negative $9.1 million almost in our EAV that we would have thought we would have captured those more dollars against that, and we captured less. Levy, of course, was down $1.3 million, and our benefits just in the ed fund alone, I estimate, probably cost us an extra $830,000 this year. So, what can we do? Well, if we come back at the next time or two, it's like this, we can do a couple things. We can say, hey, everybody cut 10% from your budget. Or we look at targeted cuts. Those are all the things that we can do. Or maybe we don't need full staffing. We work creative. Give you an example. We only clean this building 2 days a week, and we clean the transportation 2 days a week. We used to have 2 full-time people, and now we have 1 FTE. Doesn't look any dirtier, but maybe there's things that we're missing, right? So we have made some changes, and we may have to make those just to kind of, we had a staffing change in operations and maintenance where we reduced an FTE. Those are all tough choices, but it's kind of that time frame to make those.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
It's also why that fund balance is important to have there, and make sure we know that that's there if that time comes that you need it. So we've got, sorry, Robin. I know that that's there too, and that's something that we got to be thinking about. But
It's like home, right? You got to have a cushion.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's ups and downs like you described, in your assumptions that you use. So we just adjust to them.
yeah. The levy being down as much as it was kind of, I think, surprising for both of us, and you combine that with all the other economic factors and the reduced federal, the reduced mandated categoricals that we keep talking about. It's just it's a time, and I absolutely know it keeps Todd and I both up nights. So and I know Todd for sure. So I'm grateful for his efforts, working the numbers and working them again and working them again and working them again to get us closer.
One question on that, and this is my ignorance. Are only residential folks able to appeal their taxes, or can commercial too? And do you think it was more commercial that Because that's a big number.
Yeah, we had a huge amount of commercial players.
Okay.
It's typically, you know, your Walmart, your CVS, your intermodal. I mean, we've had some even Geneva Commons. We took a big hit on that as well. After its sale at a reduced cost. So all those things have factored into kind of where we're at. And sometimes when we have the tax appeals, we try not to negotiate where you have to give money back, which is sometimes something that can happen. So we'll negotiate like 2 or 3 years out, try to have some built-in agreements that we follow to lessen that on us.
Okay. Well, that's just good to know, and it's good for our residents to know that these appeals do have an impact on us as well.
Yeah, I think we have 8 cases that are still out there pending that we haven't settled.
And I would say most of the ones, as Todd said, most of the ones that impact us aren't. It's not really the residential ones. It's these big commercial ones that can have some real impact on us.
Thank you. All right, so under item number 5, future agenda items, we have the 2026-2027 draft budget, as we just heard is coming. Item 6 is items for recommendation to the full board. We have the 2026-2027 preliminary education fund budget. Do I have a motion to move that on to the full board?
So moved.
Second?
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the item passes. Item number 7 is information. Anything legislative to share? I don't have anything. Dr. Baird?
Not at this time, just the spring sessions. Got 3-4 days left, so we'll see. Seems like they got a lot to get done in the next couple days.
Yes, a lot of big things to get done in the next few days. All right, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you.